Hey Ricky, so thank you so much for coming on board. It's going to be a pleasure interviewing you, so let's just get started. So, a quick question off the top, what first inspired you to become a filmmaker?
Gosh, I don't even know. I think I've wanted to do this for as long as I can remember. I mean, I've back to even when I played with toys still, it was always in the context of my G.I. Joes were a part of like a film set. So I don't even know if there was a single moment that actually inspired me. I mean, I wrote my first full length script at 10 years old. So
Oh wow.
I've been going for it for a while.
And so you first got your start in the director's chair on the short film realm with The Cage. So what led you to tackle that as your first directorial project?
Well, at the time, so I run a film production company called Neighborhood, and we at that point had just been primarily doing commercials. I had just recently started directing some commercials, but been writing for over a decade at that point. I wanted to see if I actually had what it took to direct a movie. And so I was trying to figure out what that could be when I had no access to actors, no money. And so I looked around. The Cage, the short film that I made, I filmed in the neighborhood that I lived in. And a good friend of mine, his name's Andre Wright, he runs this nonprofit called Give and Go Athletics that basically runs basketball camps as a behavioral mental health for youth and camps in the summer. And he would always tell me of stories about kids coming to his camp, not being able to play because, their parents were selling their jerseys for drug money, or, they couldn't make it because they had a gun at practice. All these hurdles that to me, growing up, weren't things that I had to go through just to play a simple game of basketball. And so we originally started talking about making a promo for his nonprofit, which then evolved into me actually scaling it to make it a short film. We still use it for the nonprofit. I'm on his board of directors. But it actually started with that relationship and the stories of, just us sharing beers and sharing life together, and me realizing that there was something that, we could use the film to make a change in a lot of ways. And so I also had access to that neighborhood. Visually, I think it's one of the most beautiful places in the world is Philadelphia, particularly North Philadelphia. So I just looked around at what I had access to and my relationships. I thought, the folks that lived in that neighborhood would be best suited to tell the story, and that it was just my gut that I could get them to actually act in a fictional narrative. So thankfully that paid off.
So after your debut short, you went on to tackle Concrete Cowboy, of course. How did you go about planning and raising the right awareness so that you could get the proper resources to make the film independently?
Well, there's I think a lot of my momentum and relationships in the industry paid off. The film was really well received at film festivals, but primarily what helped it take off was just the relationships I'd built. I'd started out as a production assistant, worked my way up to an assistant. And, when I made the film, I ended up sending it pretty much out to everyone that would watch it. And the right people saw it. I wouldn't say millions of people saw it, but the right people saw it. And it was really a couple of the producers, a few of the producers, Jeff Waxman, Jen Mataloff, and Tucker Tooley, who really were inspired by the film, the short, and were interested in seeing what I had in terms of a feature. They also, Jeff and Jen also introduced me to my now agent, Rich Cook, which is, the way at the time when Rich was at WME, was able to get our script to Idris Elba. So it was just one of those things that, one thing led to the other, but we constantly, I think, my encouragement to any filmmaker is make something really beautiful and then hope the right people see it, and I can't speak enough to just the relationships with support around me that really led to that.
And so one of the great aspects of this film was the powerful performances that you directed from Idris Elba and Caleb McLaughlin. What led to casting them in two of these major roles? What was your experience like collaborating with them on set? And what do you hope to see from McLaughlin's career as such a young and talented actor down the line?
Yeah, so well, Idris came on because, like I was saying, my agent Rich was able to get him the script, and like any filmmaker's wildest dreams, he actually read it and loved it. So he attached, and then I knew that the character of Cole is literally carries the weight of the whole movie since he's in pretty much every scene. And so at the time, Caleb actually self-taped for the role. It was not something where I offered it to him because I knew from the jump that I didn't care if he was as famous and well known as Caleb or if he was just a kid from Philly who'd never acted in his life. I wanted the role to go to whoever was best for it. And Caleb showed up with I still remember watching his tape and being like truly blown away. I was a fan of Stranger Things, and he was completely transformative in his audition, like almost unrecognizable. And that his audition really became the one that I kept coming back to every time I would compare it against everyone else's. And I forget how many people read, but like hundreds, if my memory serves me right. And I watched them all because I knew how important it was. But yeah, both of them collaborating, they were tremendous. I mean, they dove very deeply into the world, understanding even, for Idris, working on his dialect and coaching to make sure that he sounded like he was from North Philly his whole life. So I was constantly impressed watching The Monitor, thinking this is one of the most spectacular things I've ever witnessed in my life, particularly from Caleb. We're well into overtime on some of these days, and he's pulling off these hyper emotional scenes with the energy like it's first shot. So yeah, he's impressive to me, and I'm excited for people to see him in this movie. I think it'll definitely make people realize he's here to stay for a long time.
And so what's next for your career? Do you have any upcoming projects that you can tell us about?
Gosh, I feel like if I tell you, they'll change by the next week. So we're definitely we're doing a lot of writing. Off of TIFF, we were tapped by Chad Stahelski of the John Wick franchise. We did a pass on a draft for him for John Wick 4, which was a lot of fun. Dan and we love writing. That's our first love. So we're definitely taking on a lot of writing projects. We have an original script that the financiers of Concrete Cowboy just purchased. So we're working on that right now. So yeah, there's obviously a lot of really wonderful opportunities being offered to us. Also trying to be patient to make sure that we're thoughtful about what's next. But yeah, I hope that's enough an answer.
Yeah, that's good. That's good, and I'm excited to see all those in the future. So the last question here is: what advice would you give to aspiring creatives who are trying to get a start in such a turbulent time?
Well, I wouldn't use the turbulent times as an excuse. I think any good artist, myself included, always tries to find an excuse why it might be too hard or unattainable. But I can attest that, when I look back almost 4 years to the date when the film comes out was the first time I met Eric. When we first started on the journey to make Concrete Cowboy, no one had even seen my short. I didn't have an agent. Idris Elba didn't know who I was. We didn't have a script. And so it's constantly about putting, one foot in front of the other and doing it well and doing it with a lot of empathy and care. No matter whether you're telling a true story with a community or just even the way that you treat your crew and cast, like to me, there's no way to be successful as like some solo genius. No one likes to work with those people anyway. And so, I'm constantly trying to surround myself with people who are more talented than me. And making a film is definitely pushing a boulder up a hill, but you just got to do it one step at a time, and eventually you'll look back and realize you traveled really far. I can look back now and go, I can't believe we actually made a movie. It's crazy. So that would be my advice: is you just have to be diligent in the small moments and the small tasks and do them all well.
Sounds great. Sounds great. So thank you once again so much for taking the time to do
Of
this
course,
interview.
man.
It's been a pleasure talking to you, and have a great rest of your day.